And we've got all the right in the world on our side. And there ain't no reason to be afraid. And there ain't no reason to not take the challenge dead on. Because I'm going to tell you who we come from, folks. We don't come from some weak, jellyback, spineless people. That's not who we come from. None of us. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what nation your folks hail from, how much money you got. We all share the same name. We are Americans. And at Bunker Hill, there was Americans. And at Fredericksburg and Gettysburg, there was Americans. And at Iwo Jima, raising that flag on Suribachi, it was Americans. And at Pork Chop Hill, there was Americans. Quezon, there was Americans. And on 9/11, there was Americans who ran towards those burning buildings. That is who you share your heritage with. You do not share your heritage with a weak and ineffective people who cower at the sight of trouble. You share your heritage with a strong and brave people who are determined to hold on to their freedom and for the freedom of future generations. Guys, it's time for us to stand up and be that generation. It's time for us to stand strong and proud and remember who we are. That we are Americans. And as long as we stand as the vanguard of freedom in this nation, freedom will survive people. Not only survive, it will thrive. So guys, it's time to put on our packs. It's time to fix those bayonets. It's time to get ready. We got a fight on our hands. And our fight is not for us, for all those generations that's going to come behind us. Let's save America, folks.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome to the program. We're going to do a little historical journey today. You know, I thought about this from the standpoint of, you know, we could talk about you're going to find out in short order that the ballots in Georgia don't exist. Really? We've known that for a long time. I've told you that. Or we could talk about the fact that today is the deadline to release all of the emails, all of the information and everything happening with the Epstein files. Well, today, end of day is that deadline. A lot of people are calling for Pam Bondi to be impeached or resign, whatever it ends up being, because nothing's happening. And frankly, you know, I'm talking about this government stuff is in many ways just circular. Don't you think? Maybe what's going to happen at any time. So I decided to kind of take a mental break, and a mental break is just heading a different direction, just a little bit of a little different direction. Have you ever thought about this very day in history? December 19th. Have you ever investigated your day in history? And the reason why I call it your day in history, today's my birthday, not that it's a big deal, but this is, you know, like if it's your birthday, it's your day in history. Have you ever investigated your particular day in history? Might be fascinating to some. I'm going to kind of go through it. I'm going to share some things that happened back in history this day, because I think sometimes we don't understand how connected we are to the past, and history goes on and it will always go on, and we'll be here for a moment in time and then it'll be over. For this moment in time, the fine folks at Gold Co. are bringing you this program. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I am asking you to go to jovanlovesgold.com and request your free gold and silver kit today. Just like I told you, there's no ballots in Georgia. They're gone. I'm telling you the same thing. Something's going to happen when it comes to our money. When they do a digital change, it is going to happen. And I think you should think about it, especially if you have a retirement account of any kind, a 401k, IRA, you're going to be sitting with family for the holiday. You need to make sure they at least feed their brain. So request your free gold and silver kit today by going to Jovan Loves Gold, that I do with my fine partners at Gold Co., because now is the time to protect your money with gold and silver. At least, you know, when your family members inquire, hey guys, just check it out, make sure you're covered, right? And I also know that being with family will probably be stressful. Yeah. Here, I got a little stress dose for you. Our fine friends over at CB Distillery have this going. Just remember, all you got to remember on this one is the promo code is Rumble, not my name, Jovan. The holidays are always hectic. And I got to tell you, even with today being my birthday, I always did not like being one of these people that had a birthday that's exactly a week before Christmas. It sucks. But probably the only thing could be worse is a birthday like on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, right? When you think of it from childhood terms of getting a present or whatever. Well, the holidays are stressful enough. Late nights, just getting ready. It kind of wears you out, right? Kind of wears you out. So I'm sharing you the ultimate holiday survival plan, CBD from CBD Distillery. Seriously, everything you need for a great holiday. Stuff your mom's stocking with CBD for better sleep. Don't forget the relief stick for workout pain or the holiday calm for yourself. Just grab some. Their products are made with premium quality, clean ingredients, no fillers, no artificial anything, with 2 million customers and 100% money-back guarantee. It's the gift you feel good about giving. It's the gift that giving feel good. Oh, wow. Guys, thank you for those donations, gifts for my birthday. Wow. Thank you for that, guys. You're dropping them in Rumble. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys. Here's a code for you to scan. Right now, my favorite product in all of this is the roll-on. Ask people in chat, they'll tell you what they use. So you know what? Give your year a great ending. Give yourself and everyone on your list a gift of better sleep, less stress, and pain relief with CB Distillery. And your promo code Rumble, you can save 25% on your entire purchase. Visit cbdistillery.com. Enter promo code Rumble for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com. Promo code Rumble, cbdistillery.com. Might not be available in your state for certain products. It just depends on your state. And don't forget, one more, we still have this going on. You're about to go into the season where there's just a tremendous amount of food that's going to be left and laying around. If you never considered yourself a business person, man or woman, I'm telling you, I'm watching people get one of these freeze dryers. You get $1,000 off. Either zap the code or visit the website. You can see the website on the screen there. Let me tell you what people are doing. And $1,000 off, they're a multi-$1,000 purchase, but people are going in and families are going in together. They're kind of pitching in. And by the way, the family, you can get them on payments too, and the family just take turns making the payment. But I'm watching people realize when it comes to backup food supply or whatever the case may be, you're paying through the nose. It's wildly expensive. And I watched a neighborhood family go in this together. Emu Chick, thank you so much for that gift there on Rumble for my birthday. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys very much. Anyway, thank you. But for families going together, one family went together, they went in on it. And what they do is they told their whole neighborhood, hey, I've got this freeze dryer and you can start, at least make you a little bit of food supply and back up. And, save your leftovers. We'll schedule and do it. They just kind of let it run and do its thing. They're doing it for the neighborhood. And the neighborhood is actually, paying them just a simple fee to do it. And they've paid for their own machine and everything they make. They get just a little percentage of from the neighborhood. So they're building their own stock of freeze-dried food supply and doing it for their neighbors and getting enough little cash to pay the payments. It's actually zero for them, and they're generating some of their own food. People are getting really creative, and I think the most creative thing I've seen is people buying liver, right? Beef liver and stuff, chicken livers and stuff, Costco, getting it dirt cheap, cutting it up into little chunks, freeze drying it, and then they're selling it at the fairs as dog treats, and it's a big deal. I mean, this stuff just sells out, right? It's about the only thing where the little piece in costs you a penny, but people will pay, 50, 60 cents a piece, do it. And people are really making money out of it. So it's something to consider. If you just got a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, you can do it, pay for yourself, etc. But that's it. Just something to think about. Anyway, we're going to be talking about on this day in history. I'm using this day just as a way to maybe get you interested in what happens at any time on your particular day in history. So share this. We'll get started right after this.
Warning. The following program has been rated Gilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians, the elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd? Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. He's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Okay, folks, we're going to talk about on this very day in history. And I'm asking you, have you ever investigated your day in history, which is technically your birthday? Today's my birthday. I'll tell you what my birthday meal is. Family and friends get together. And it's the only, time of year I really do it. But my meal consists of the following. I'm going to have a very, very nice grilled medium. It's got to be a little bit charred on the outside. Steak, never ever beef, it's best steak there is. And then I'm literally going to have, I'm going to tell you the truth, not that I'll eat it all. I'm going to try. I got a whole side of Atlantic salmon, skin on, right? A whole side. It will be basically, you do like a little bit of a sizzle fry on the skin in the pan. It's not like you fry it. You just put some oil in the pan that you're going to broil it in. You kind of sizzle, snap fries the skin. And then basically you broil the salmon. Once you get it to the point, cook, and it happens very quick, then you begin to start slathering the sweet and hot sauce on it at the same time, where the outer edges kind of become crunchy, but it's really thick and gooey. And that side of salmon's for me. And it will be accompanied by a wedge, right? Just a totally unnutritious, not good for you iceberg wedge. I know that sounds stupid, but when you throw the crumbled blue cheese on it, which will also be crumbled blue cheese and butter on the steak, it sounds good. It really goes well together. And then the cake won't be a cake this year. It'll be different flavors of cheesecake and an evening of potato vodka, very dirty martinis with 3 olives. And you got to do potato vodka. So that's my birthday dinner and such. Now, what we're talking about is on this very day in history, right? What happened on any given day in history? If you were looking at your birthday, from a historical standpoint, if you just use that particular one to get proficient on history on, what would happen? Like in 1998, this was the day that Clinton was impeached. Somebody says Tito's. Not Tito's. Tito's is fine, but I actually like Manapolova, which is Polish potato vodka. Monopolova, I have heard that there's a place in Virginia and there's a place in Montana that are both making potato vodka. And in fact, I myself have wanted to try distilling potato vodka. Anyway, looking at this, look at your birthday and figure out, okay, what happened on this particular day in history? I think it's very easy to see how you relate to events in history. Like I said, okay, this was in 1998 was the day that Bill Clinton was impeached, right? And who hasn't been in the office occasionally and had a bill spill? You know what I mean? I mean, can you relate to history? I can relate to history, but you follow what I'm saying? And so let's kind of go back in time and look at some of these dates. You should know that the event of celebrating a birthday goes back to the ancient Greeks, okay? So 2,000 plus years is the history of birthdays. In the Greco-Roman world, it was, they only celebrated, December 17th. That's your birthday? Oh, wow, December 17th is my cousin brother's birthday as well. Yeah, anyway, the Greeks celebrated this Dies Natalis, right? The natural day you were born. It was usually only held for emperors or at temples, etc. But it was to honor public and private life. So that's kind of where birthdays, it was two words, the birthday, not the compounded word together. In the early Christian culture and through the beginning of the 2nd to the 4th centuries, there were Christians that celebrated the custom, but then it was outlawed by the church because it was considered pagan. Did you know that? Celebrating a birthday is unchristian? How demonic and satanic of you. Anyway, and so that's why birthdays weren't celebrated in Christian Europe for a very long time. The quote-unquote modern inventor, or relatively modern inventor, compared to, going back to Papal Rome or 2nd century, birthday comes from Germans. Of course, I'm a German, right? German American. The classic birthday party that you have or you get is a German invention. In fact, it started in the late medieval centuries, going on through the 18th centuries. And that's where you got a decorated cake, right? And you got where the birthday cake comes from. It basically comes from the Kinderfest, like kindergarten, Kinderfest, the festivities surrounding your birthday. So it's a very German thing to do. And then, of course, in the 1800s or whatever, 1893, what was her name? The Hill Sisters. They came up with good morning to all, good morning to all. That birthday, which was to teach kindergartners in class to learn to sing the song, which in 1912 became Happy Birthday to You. So that's the history of the birthday part of the information. But if you could look back in time, right? If you could look back in time, what happened in history? So we're going to use this date. I'm looking for my eyeball cleaner. In the year 324, Licinius, who was the Roman emperor, in 324, he abdicated his throne. Now, just so you know, if you know my history, I'm a direct descendant of the Holy Roman Emperors. My history is a wild one, right? But I think that's interesting. He had to step down. St. Anastasius had to end his reign as the Catholic Pope, right? Anastasius, how do you say his name? Anastasius, yeah. Anastasius Pope. Interesting, whatever. That was in 401, okay? Here you go. You ready? Henry II of England. Ironically, another one of my relatives. Henry II of England in 1154, that was when he was crowned king of England and married Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was the Queen of France, right? And in England and the Duchess of Aquitaine. And so that's what happened. And thank you for the birthday wishes back then. Also at the same time, when you're thinking about, now I want to kind of give you the juxtaposition of this. This is why history is so fascinating. If in 1154, right, 1154, you got King, right, King Henry II. And we jump forward to 1487. 1487. Remember 1492, sell the, whatever. But remember 1487. Do you know what happened in 1487? It was the opening ceremony of the sixth great temple in Teotihuacan. Now, I want you to think about that, especially with like all the border crossing and stuff like that. Think about this. In that year, in 1487, which is historically really kind of not that far away when you think about it, the opening ceremony of the sixth great temple in Teotihuacan, which is modern Mexico City, in celebration of the opening of the great temple, they sacrificed 4,000 prisoners of war to the Aztec gods, 1,000 a day. Now think about how close that is in history overall. When you look at these historic dates of, different sides of the ocean or whatever, that's pretty wild, right? That's pretty wild. Okay. 1562, it's the War of the Huguenots. They've done that. Cruz, how society kind of discovered the Maori people, right? Isn't it the Maoris, the one with the tattoos down the mouth and do all that kind of stuff like that? I don't know. I could be wrong, but you know what I'm saying. The Maori people. Is it Maori? Minori? In 1642, they were still killing people that arrived in their bay. In 1642, you tend to think these things are way back in history, but in the scope of history, Moray, thank you. That's not that far back. 1675 was King Philip's War. King Philip's War was a colonial militias did an attack against what's called the Great Swamp Fort. Isn't it funny how history repeats itself? We have a Great Swamp Fort in D.C., but this was the Narragansetts. Am I saying that right for folks up there? Narragansetts. Anyway, in that particular battle, hundreds of women and children were killed. That was in 1675. 1686. Now, this is fictional. A lot of publishing stuff happened on this day in history. This is the day that after 28 years, somebody says I'm drunk. Not at all. I have coffee, really good coffee. I've got a new type of coffee I'm trying out that they add the mineralization back in. Maybe I had too much beaver goo last night. I don't know. I could have. Anyway, Robinson Crusoe on a December 19th was the day that he left his island in the book. The fictional character Robinson Crusoe, right? Something they just ended, sadly. They're not going to be producing the Farmer's Almanac anymore. Did you see that? Farmer's Almanac's the bomb. But they're not going to be producing it anymore. But it just happened that this day in history, In 1732 is the day, under the pseudonym of Richard Saunders, that poor Richard's Almanac began to produce the annual almanac for the next 25 years, and that person was none other than Benjamin Franklin. That happened on this day, right? Ironically, at the very same time in 1776, there's crisis going on in America, and there was a book written, right, called The American Crisis. Now let's just hold a pin on it right here. We're in 2025, and we are dealing with an American crisis. Can we agree? 2025, right freaking now, we are dealing with an American crisis. But in 1776, on this very same day, Thomas Paine published the first American crisis essay talking about these are the times that try men's souls. I just want you to think about that. Because damn it, here we are in 2025, dealing with the same bullshit of an American crisis that is testing every one of our souls. When you look at it that way, you understand this is the human condition. But we forget when they warned us it's a republic if you can keep it, stay involved, understand what's going on. And we just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, getting raped by the system. In 1777, this is the day that Washington brought his troops in, settled them down, the day that he kind of set up in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania for the winter. So this is the beginning of that day, right? In that part of, you know, our own founding of a country. This was the day when all of that serious ice and storm and winter is setting in. While that's setting in, right, because we're going to be fighting the English, the British, right? So you have American colonial forces batten down in this war. Did you know that that same time, well, roughly 1783, that Britain at the time, their prime minister, their new prime minister in 1783 in Britain. Now use this to measure against history. That's why I'm saying, and so you understand what I'm doing, folks. Today just happens to be my birthday, but it's not about my birthday. It's an encouragement to you. Have you ever looked at your day in history? Sorry, I'm stuffed up. Have you ever looked at your day in history? This is your day. What the hell happened on your day in history? I try to get people to look at it because to understand how connected you are. By the way, thanks for sharing this. And I hope you can understand, you know, it's not about my birthday. It's just about, you should look at history. The one day you should know about is your history. But while George Washington is settling our troops in Valley Forge, the thing that would decide our country, this war and everything else and all the hardships and everything that went through it. But use this to compare to today's American society. Are you ready? The British Prime Minister at 1783, his name was William Pitt. He had just turned 24 years old. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. Forget the fact that we're in our war that helped make our country free, fighting the very country to break from their prime minister at that time had just turned 24 years old. The reason I want you to look at that is what the hell happened to us when we are a country with great morals, both sides, different stuff, had wholly different values, and at 24 years old, we're freaking running countries. Founding countries, writing incredible documents that last to this day. And what can a 24-year-old in the UK or the United States do today? Think about that. We have gone so backwards in time, in quality, in ethics, in morals, in abilities. And we're supposed to be the advancement of people in civilization and learning. Yeah, it's well before the pussification of America. I just want you to think about that. On this day in 1788, the Chinese troops occupied for the first time the capital of Vietnam. You think Vietnam is such a 60s thing? No, the Chinese went after it in 1788. What the hell didn't get settled then in 1788 that in the 60s we still had to go through it? What was the very first state in the United States of America? This was the very first appropriation for money specifically for road building, which would become a favorite of Democrats to this day. What state was it in 1795 that did that? The first official appropriation of road building money. Do you know what it was? Kentucky. Kentucky. What was the very first state in 1823 that required to be notified of births? You had to register your babies. We're talking December 19th. I'm doing this because it's my birthday. What state was the very first one to require that all babies must be registered so we know how to tax you? What state was that? Georgia. That was this day, right? In 1828, Vice President John C. Calhoun, he was defending, now pay attention, he was defending the right of the states, each individual state. He was defending the rights of each individual state at the time to be able to nullify federal laws. It was the premise that states' rights trumps federal rights. He presented to the South Carolina legislature. It did not pass. On this day, Charles Darwin, one of the most significant bullshitters ever to go down in history. By the way, thank you for the birthday wishes. Charles Darwin in 1835. I tell this to you, you got to understand, and I'm about to do a big series on evolution, right? Because evolution is bullshit. You've never seen as many trolls as when you see me talk about evolution, right? But I'm going to do a whole series on evolution. But the bullshit artist known as Charles Darwin was happening at a time in academia where academia was cleaving itself from being religious institutions. Academia was in this big fight. Colleges, universities were religious oriented. You got a theology degree, etc. And then came this, no, that's God, you can't teach God and all this stuff. And that was the big war in universities. And as universities trying to separate itself from God, at that same time, 1835, you have Darwin come about with his theory of evolution, which was actually somebody else's idea, but he came up with the survival of the fittest and it took off. Anyway, in 1835, this was the day that Darwin actually reached New Zealand. Now, the next one I want to recommend to you. You're about to go into a holiday. If you want to watch a great holiday movie that's just great, feels great, has a great story, has a great moral, teaches a great lesson, young and old alike. I'm going to recommend a movie to you called The Man Who Invented Christmas. It's a beautiful, wonderful movie with a great story. And it tells the story of an entrepreneur that had been successful, but nobody would back him, and he kind of got in trouble, and he kind of couldn't get things done. Kind of like when Mel Gibson couldn't get The Passion of the Christ funded, right? So he kind of has to do it on his own. And in doing it on his own and taking the risk himself as an entrepreneur, bidding everything on his skills and ability, he basically delivers one of the largest screw yous to publishing history ever. And that's on this day, the day he did it. He released it December 19th, right? In 1843, Charles Dickens released A Christmas Carol. Sends chills down my spine. The movie's that good. If you have not watched it, watch the movie, The Man Who Invented Christmas. Very good. And I think I like a lot of the renditions of Scrooge, too. I tend to watch Scrooge or A Christmas Carol and all this other stuff at the end of the year because it kind of reminds me of you can always be better than you are. Anyway, you should watch that. In 1854, a fellow by the name of Allen Winston in Connecticut, he was the first guy to patent on this day a sewing machine that could actually sew around curves. Everything was straight lines before that. Nobody had invented the ability for the sewing head to pivot, to turn. Well, that was a fellow by the name of Allen Winston. It was 1854. And in 1859, again, not really that long ago when you think about it, was when they started paving for the very first time in history Market Street, right? They started paving the Market Street Railroad in San Francisco. That's not really that long ago. There was the Battle of Blackwater. By the way, SG, thank you for that birthday gift. I greatly appreciate it. In 1861, it was the Battle of Blackwater. Damn, here we are in another Blackwater song. But Battle of Blackwater, that was the American Civil War. There was something happened at Salem Church. Maybe you guys can tell me this that are in Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee, Salem Church. In 1862, there was a battle at the church, 80 casualties. In 1870, there was a small, I'm going to call it a small boat. I'm not going to call it a dinghy because they didn't have plastics, right? But a small boat had 4 fellows in it, and they reached Kauai, Hawaii. They'd been shipwrecked. They'd been at sea for 31 days. They arrive in Hawaii, 4 of them. They get to the shore, they see all these parents, and they fucking hightail it out of there. No, I'm kidding. It's one of our family in Hawaii. Anyway, so these guys had been lost at sea for 31 days. They arrive at Kauai, and the rocks battered them up. Only one person survived. One person survived. His name was William Hartford. William Hartford, right? And it was because the USS Saginaw had sunk on its way there, and they were the only ones to survive, and they made it to Hawaii. But right when all of them get to Hawaii, 4 of them, 3 of them drowned on the rocks, and 1 makes it. So in 1871, a fellow by the name of Alfred Jones, a lot of inventions occur on my birthday. It's ironic I have so many patents. 1871, you know what was invented? Corrugated paper. Not quite cardboard, but corrugated paper, right? That was in 1871. Now, this one flies in the face of everything you hear about slavery and this and American slavery and whatever. In 1884, what country was declared basically a free state. And the Congo, the darkest part of Africa in many ways, yeah, it became the Congo Free State. It was Italy who basically was over it, I guess you could say, and King Leopold the second recognized Congo Free Area, right? The big heavyweight fight at the time occurred on this day in 1887. It was a fellow by the name of Jake Killeran and Jim, right? Jim, Jem, Jim Smith. It was a bare knuckle boxing match. John O'Sullivan, one of my ancestors, used to be the heavyweight boxer of the world champion. But this particular bare knuckle boxing bout, how many rounds do you think it went before it was settled? By the way, any of you, when you were younger, did you watch Muhammad Ali fight? I liked watching Muhammad Ali fight. I did. It was beautiful. But, somebody says 20 rounds, etc. This went 106 rounds. Holy smokes. How do you go 106 rounds in any boxing, much less bare knuckle? I like boxing too. I like watching boxing. Boxing's it's not as brute idiot as you think. It's a lot of strategy. And sometimes you have to be willing to just take the ass beating to get to the point you can hit that one. Henry Morton Stanley's in 1888 on this day reached a place in East Africa called Fort Bodo, B-O-D-O. That was a big announcement that went around the world. Oh, wow, he reached this expedition, whatever. Big museum, the Bishop Museum, was founded in Hawaii in 1889. Get ready for this, because we're such a racist country, and race and people of color have been suppressed. You know it. But just the other day, in 1891, the very first Negro, which is the appropriate term for the time, Catholic priest is ordained in Baltimore. But we're so racist, and we haven't. In 1891, a bit of Canadian history. Today's the day that the Canadian country officially formed rugby unions. Rugby is associated with this day, right? 1903, what happened on this day, history-wise? Big engineering feat. Float like a butterfly, stings when I pee. Oh, I got that one wrong. Anyway, the Williamson Suspension Bridge opens between Brooklyn and Manhattan. That was only 1903, and that was an incredible engineering technology feat of the day. Now think about athletes. I taught you about rugby. I want you to think about this one. In 1904, again, that's not that very, very long ago when you really think about it from a history standpoint. The Dawson City hockey team were going to play Ottawa in the Stanley Cup on January 13th, 1905. Now, what's so important about that? Pay attention. This is 1904. The Dawson City hockey teams, right? They're going to go to Seattle. They got to take a boat to Seattle to catch a train to go to Ottawa to play in Ottawa the Stanley Cup, January 13th, 1905. What's so unique about that? The team had to walk 9 days in cold January to reach the boat to Seattle. so they could catch a train. Isn't that wild? The hockey team to play in the Stanley Cup, Gold Rush time, had to walk 9 days from Dawson City to get to Seattle to catch a boat to Seattle. Sorry, correction, to catch a boat to Seattle. So at Seattle, they could get on a train and then they could go to Ottawa. Wild, isn't it? 1907, 239 workers, 239 workers died in a coal mine explosion in Jacob Creek, Pennsylvania. Baltimore did a move in 1910. Yeah, 1910. Was the very first, now pay attention, the very first city in the United States of America, the very first city in the United States of America to do what? Roller skate? No. They were the very first city to declare there is a white side and there is a black side when it comes to residential. Yep. Democrats did that, but they don't talk about that. That was only in 1910. In 1910, also, rayon was produced for the very first time. You know that stuff that melts on you when you catch on fire? Right? 1917, the very first National Hockey League game was played on artificial ice in Toronto. Does artificial ice mean it was just man-made, or is it really artificial ice? Meaning like they didn't go cut it out of a pond? But that was only 1917. That's when the Quebec Bulldogs also played their first game. 1918, on this day, something you know to history, Ripley's Believe It or Not started on this day in 1918, right? Isn't that interesting? 1919. The American Meteorological Society was founded. That's how long we've been monitoring rain or whatever the case may be. In 1920, there was an infection that came down from Canada and hit in Brookline, Mass. What was that infection? We got it from Canada. It came down into the States, right? And it infected American people in Brookline, Massachusetts. That's right. You guessed it. It was the first U.S. indoor curling rink ever opened. (1920) King Constantine I is restored as king after the death of his son of Alexander I of Greece, just so you know. A Scottish woman in 1922 on this day, 1922, a Scottish woman, her name was Teresa Vaughan. Teresa Vaughan. She was 24 years old. Teresa Vaughan, 24 years old. So she was Scottish. She gets brought up in court in Sheffield, England. Right? Why was she brought into court? Because she had a bonus hole. No. Well, yeah, she was married 61 times across 50 cities across 3 different countries. Does that make her the original gold digger? Interesting. King George III of Greece, or the second of Greece, he moves to exile in Romania. That's 1923. Okay. In 1924, it was the cricket debut for an Australian, Bill Ponsford. I guess it's how you Ponsford. He scored 110 in his first inning. Damn. Cricket's an interesting game. I've never played it. I've watched a bunch of Indian fellows play it. It's kind of interesting. Right? But I don't know the rules. Anyway, 1924, this was on this day in 1924, was the very last time that a Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost, which was the top of the line, was sold. A Rolls-Royce, right? It's the very first time that in 1930 that an executive, shows you how long this has been going on, of the NAACP, the National Association of Colored People. I thought that was an offense. Why do they still call themselves to this day National Association of Colored People? But anyway, James Weldon Johnson in 1930 was forced to resign. He was a writer and a civil rights activist in 1930. Interesting, right? On this day, in 1932, was the very first transmission overseas by a broadcasting network, and that was the BBC. The BBC. 1933, President Roosevelt on this day creates the EHFA. EHFA, the Electric Home and Farm Authority, and it was so low-income houses could, for the very first time, buy appliances. Right? Buy appliances. It's not like our welfare program today. I mean, it didn't Leon Spinks recently, what's Stacey Abrams, yeah. Stacey, I have to think Leon Spinks first to get her name because they look alike. You put them side by side, they look like a brother and sister. I swear it's the same dude. But anyway, she supposedly did $1 billion or something disappeared so people could buy refrigerators for poor people. Do you remember that? Do you remember that stuff? 1933 was when it was first done, and every one of those appliances got delivered to the poor homes. That was 1933. And 2023, $1 billion plus gets appropriated and only 2 refrigerators get delivered. Yeah, they learned you could appropriate money for poor people, redefine poor people as everybody who has more melanin in their skin, and you get money. You saw the announcement that Truth Social is merging with a fusion energy company. You probably saw that. That's really interesting. I don't know why. But their SPAC, which is how President Trump got public in that particular SPAC's rolling into another one that is designing a very large fusion plant, which is interesting because the Brown University shooter shot the guy that was leading the charge on developing small-size fusion reactors. He got assassinated, and a few months before him, another guy got assassinated that worked on fusion reactors. But in 1938, fusion was discovered. Nuclear fusion was discovered in 1938. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. That was in 1938 when Otto Helm discovered, with his assistant, Fritz Strassmann, fucking Joes, the Jews! Anyway, we as a nation, as a world, discovered nuclear fusion. In scale, we got so many few nuclear power plants, and it became the thing to protest when it's the cleanest, most abundant energy we have outside of hydrogen. Think how little we've done since 1938. And here we sit in 2025. And damn it, in 2025, our nuclear fusion breakthrough minds are being assassinated. And we've learned to, no, that's nuke. That's kills the lesbian, one-eyed, lick-a-toad, lick-a-lot-of-puss weaver. You follow what I'm saying? That's how long that is going on. And by the way, you're right. I'm screwing up because I say fusion. It's fission. I apologize. Don't get fizzony with me. Somebody put something in my coffee. Nuclear fission. I apologize. Nuclear fusion is something different. That's when a very, very, very fat lady with huge thighs puts on corduroys, runs down the parking lot of a Walmart, and because of the friction, her legs weld together. I am sorry, that is nuclear fusion. Right? Tina says, see, drunk. I'm not drunk at all. I may be punchy, but I'm not drunk. You're right. My mistake. It happens. It happens. It happens. Today in 1939 is when gross. What happens? Right? All that thigh rubbing the corduroys back and forth, it fizzes the fusion to fizzle together. And then all the guys of colors like Aldi stand out and go, look, for sizzle my nizzle, look what happened, bro. Anyway, in 1939, Russia did an air attack against Finnish troops. The Finns in Russia was at war. And in 1941, Donald J. Trump takes command of the German, I'm just what the liberals think. He's Hitler, isn't he? So if Trump's Hitler, then he had to take command in 1941 of the German army. Yeah, kind of fucks up history. Yes, in 1941, Adolf Hitler on this day takes command of the German army. And then in 1941, the German submarine with the U-boat 1, U-547 sinks. What else did they create? In 1941, and the United States government created this. What new office was created by our government in 1941 specifically for anything having to do with World War II? Not the War Department, close. We redid it in modern history. The Biden administration did it. In 1941, in response to World War II, the United States government created the U.S. Office of Censorship. See how I keep on telling you? History repeats itself. The U.S. Office of Censorship. No. To make sure that they created or they controlled all the dialogue about World War II. Isn't that wild? And that's what Biden tried to do. On 1942, something else happened in San Francisco. Somebody known to history. Again, a wonderful movie if you've never seen it. 1942. Great movie. It was a Clint Eastwood movie, wasn't it? Second time around. Oh, maybe. 1942, Robert Stroud. He was a convicted murderer. He was put into, who was it? Burt Lancaster played the part. He was transferred to the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, where he is known for the rest of history as the Birdman of Alcatraz. 1943, there was a military coup in Bolivia. 1945, the Austrian Republic reestablished itself. Right? 1946. Remember, we started talking about this one in the 1778. 1946, war breaks out in Indochina and Vietnamese, led by Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh. Yes. He was the Vietnamese communist revolutionary. Ho Chi Minh. And that was the 1946 that it worked out, right? Etc. 1948, the eighth largest snowfall in New York City history. Me love you big time, long time. Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi to me, man. Anyway, in 1948, the eighth most significant snowfall was in New York City history. They named the snowfall. You might not know this about history. They named this particular snowfall event after me. I'm trying to get hot coffee because I let my coffee get warm or cold. Yes, 1948 was the eighth largest snowfall in New York City history at 15.3 inches. Now you know why they named it after me. We got our first TV station in 1949, WJW-TV, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio, CBS. That was a big one. On this day, we're talking about this day, what we're doing is, today's my birthday, just so you know the stupid ass shit I'm doing. Have you ever looked at your day in history? And I'm sorry, my nose is running. I must be full. Anyway, this day in history, we're just kind of looking. Have you ever looked at your birthday and just wondered what happened on that day? Have you ever? This was the day in 1950 that the Dalai Lama was forced to leave to go to the Tibetan border when there was the invasion of Tibetan forces. They're trying to get the spiritual leader, Dalai Lama. He was the 14th Dalai Lama at the time. Here's one that can kind of tell you how far things have changed historically. This is why I'm doing it, because on this day also in 1950, the North Atlantic Council elected Dwight D. Eisenhower, our very first black president. Most people do not know that. Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was as black as Obama, mixed race, our very first black president, he was elected the supreme allied commander of Europe for NATO. So Eisenhower became the grand poobah of NATO at that time. They also had in 1952, they also had because there was a strike in 1941, because 450 Jews got arrested. And what the Jews got arrested for is there was a Nazi sympathizer sympathizing with Hitler, saying that all Jews should be killed. He was doing it on the streets, right, of Netherlands, in the Netherlands, standing in the street, it's the Jews, supporting what Hitler was doing. 450 Jews gathered together and stomped his ass to death. True story. People said enough of this shit. Right? An important song in history was first recorded in this day in 1955. You probably know it from a different recording artist, but the original recording artist recorded it on this day in 1955. Who was that? Carl Perkins. What was the song? Blue Suede Shoes. At Sun Records, which is where Elvis came in with the Colonel, and he recorded later Blue Suede Shoes and took it to the top. In 1956, there was a musical comedy that hit, right? My Ding-a-ling. No, not that one. Well, there was one of the ding-a-lingers in it. It included Little Richard, an expert at little ding-a-lings. But anyway, in 1956, there was a musical comedy came out with James Mansfield called The Girl Can't Help It. Right? On this day in 1958, President Dwight D. Eisenhower made history. What did he make history for on this day in 1958? It was the very first radio broadcast that basically said, to all mankind, America's wish for peace on earth and goodwill to men everywhere. Why was that so unique in 1958? It was the very first broadcast to send a Christmas message where the broadcast came back to Earth from space. So instead of kind of being terrestrial, it went up, satellites came back down. Right? There's a fire, right? The fire in 1960, the USS Constellation that was being built in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn shipyard. If you've never seen it, it's worth seeing. 50 people die with that. Now, you said my ding-a-ling, and I know you were joking, but in 1960, there was a song that was recorded that became a hit with Reprise Records. You got part of it right. It wasn't my ding-a-ling. It was Ring-a-Ding-Dong by and Let's Fall in Love by Frank Sinatra. Ring-a-ding-dong. Right? Did you know that in 1961, and this is really weird when you think about it, in 1961, Indonesian President Sukarno mobilized his troops. Indonesian president mobilizes his troop to seize New Guinea from the Netherlands. This is kind of the old vestiges of how the world was broke up. 1962. First street signs in the park, Golden Gate Park, approved by the Park Commission. That was 1962. Right? 1962 was also the transit of 5A1. Now you understand why there was a presidential address, because it's kind of backwards. He did the address and then they announced it, but it was the first operational navigational satellite launch. Not just put it up there and it goes, but put it up there and we can control it. 1965, Charles de Gaulle, right? Took over from Mitterrand, right? Francois Mitterrand, you remember him? Remember these names? De Gaulle, you probably remember it because the airport's named after him, right? 1967, the Prime Minister of Australia, Harold Holt, he went swimming, was swept out to sea, presumed dead. They've never found him at all. Another television station came online when you were getting local stations out of New York. 1968, we got WCWB, Channel 41, and Macon, Georgia. 1969, the Beatles released the 7th Christmas Fan Club single released. Here's a piece of history, especially if you love old TV shows. In 1971, there was a CBS special for Christmas. It was called Homecoming: A Christmas Story. Homecoming for a Christmas Story. It was a special. It was a TV movie that evolved into, on this day, that's what we're talking about, everything that happened on this day, evolved into a television series. What was that series? Do you know? Started out as a special on television, Homecoming: A Christmas Story. Yes, it brought to our country something that I loved. I wish we still had programming like this, but it is what beget the Waltons. Good night, John Boy. I and my sisters used to do that through the rooms and the walls. Good night, John Boy. We always used to do that. It was funny. In 1971, NASA launches the first Intelsat 4F3 ComCort satellite. A movie also came out in 1971 on this day. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange came out on this day. 1972, Apollo 17, that was the last Apollo moon landing, returns to Earth. It fell in the Pacific Ocean, southeast of Samoa. Another movie came out in 1974 on my birthday. I was 10 years old. I turned 10 years old on this day, December 19th. That's what we're talking about. I'm just kind of, have you ever looked at what happened on your birthday? That's what we're talking about. Asking you on this very day in history. That's all I'm doing. And I'm asking you, have you ever looked at what happened on your birthday in history? You should. It's interesting. It's a connection to you. Yeah, 1974, Roger Moore, The Man with the Golden Gun, debuted on my birthday, right? Who was sworn in as vice president at the same time in 1974? Nelson Rockefeller became the vice president of the United States, right? 1975 was also, right? Yes, I was born in 1964. 1975, Red Hand Commandos, a loyalist party in North Ireland, started exploding car bombs, killed 2 civilians, wounding 20. In 1976, a Piper Cherokee plane crashed into the Baltimore Memorial Stadium. It crashed into the upper stands of the stadiums, and it missed the game, meaning luckily, missed the game by 10 minutes after the Colts lose 40-14 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody was seriously hurt. Also, another leader was awarded on this day in 1976. He got his 5th Order of Lenin. That was Leonid Brezhnev in Russia. 1978, the French did their first nuke test. 1978, they arrested for charges of corruption Indira Gandhi, right? Another movie came out in 1979 on this day. Dustin Hoffman, Meryl Streep, Kramer versus Kramer. Another company was started in 1979. A movie company, a film company. Miramax, yep, Harvey Weinstein and Bob Weinstein. It's named after their parents. Did you know that? It's named after their parents. Another movie came out in 1980 on this day. Right? Martin Scorsese did it. Robert De Niro, etc. Raging Bull came out on this day. Another movie came out on this day, December 19th in 1980. 9 to 5, Dolly Parton, Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin. Here, this might sound familiar to you. In 1980, on this day, which happens to be my birthday, December 19th. See if this sounds familiar. Iran requests from the United States of America $24 billion. Send us $24 billion and we will free the hostages. See how long this racket's been going on? Why you should be looking back at history every day. That was in 1980. And you still see how much it's about money, holding us hostage, making threats, and doing stupid ass stuff, taking people hostage, claiming, oh, we're bullshit. That was in 1980. 1980, Mutual Broadcasting canceled what was a long-running radio show, which was called the Sears Radio Theater. It was one of the final nails in the coffin. You could listen to Radio Theater, Theater of the Mind, where you'd hear it. But that was stuff then. The think of it, and when I think of soccer really didn't kind of come up with me in school that much. We knew what it was, right? But in 1983, that's when the FIFA World Cup was stolen, right? By the Brazilian, from the Brazilian headquarters in Rio de Janeiro. Also in 1984, at Yale University, they did not know they had them, but a student doing research at Yale University came across 33 unknown works, right, of Bach. Now, who said that? Kitty says on her birthday, May 12th. Kitty, you might like to know this. I have two daughters, both born on May 12th, just so you know. China did its first nuke test in 1984, right? In 1984, that was when Margaret Thatcher agreed to transfer sovereignty of Hong Kong to China. They agreed to a two-system network, one country, two systems, right? This was when Gretzky, whose daughter's birthday is today, December 19th. It was in 1984 that a 23-year-old Wayne Gretzky was the first the youngest NHL player to score 1,000 points. Another great movie came out in 1986 on this day, and that was the movie Platoon by Oliver Stone and Charlie Sheen. Right? Another rig that goes on throughout history. Now, I want you to think about this. In 1986, our country was at war with OPEC. Remember, our oil prices, before we bitch about gasoline and everything, oil prices are not decided by the United States of America. We have nothing to do with it. It's OPEC. Right? And in 1986, we were fighting with OPEC for the first 6 months because they were trying to stranglehold us. They cut production 7%. And then what they do, they immediately raised prices to $18 a barrel. What is it, 60 something today? $1988, that's when NASA said, hey, here's what we plan to get to Mars. We're going to do a colony on Mars. 1988 on this day was when Oklahoma football got suspended. The team gets a full 3 years probation. 1988, an unexploded World War II bomb was found in Frankfurt, Germany. 5,000 people had to be evacuated. 1989 on this day saw Eastern Airlines go away, Latin American route, because that's American Airlines bought it. It was on this day in 1989 when Larry Bird of the Boston Celtics began his NBA free throw streak of sinking free throws in 71 consecutive games. It was also in 1991 when One Life to Live, remember soaps? One Life to Live debuted its 60th episode. And in 1991, Boris Yeltsin took over the Kremlin, right? Think about that. And then, of course, I began the program. I told you in 1989, Bill Clinton was impeached. Right? Oh, man. There was riots in Argentina in 2001, right? Another movie came out. It's a good day for movies. Another movie came out. The very first Lord of the Rings came out, Fellowship of the Ring. It also came out on this day. Think about that. The Lakota people in 2007 declared their independence and withdrew from all treaties with the United States in 2007. That happened. I do this so you kind of look back through time on your day. Just look on your day. Look it up, what happened on this day in history, and look at your birthday. Right? Period. And look, I tell you great events in history. I didn't tell you about how 40 people died in 2016 in Siberia because they drank bath lotion because they heard it contained alcohol. Yeah, stupid ass shit has happened for a long time. Yeah, 48 people die after drinking bath lotion in Siberia because they heard it contained alcohol. How about this one? See if history repeats itself. On this day in 2016, a Muslim person drives a truck into the Christmas market in Berlin, kills 12, injures 48. Now that's 2016. How long's this shit been going on? On this day in 2016, another thing happened. President Trump was nominated this day to be the president of the United States and run for the Republican Party. It was also on this day in 2018 when Donald Trump announced on this day victory over the Islamic State and withdrawal to U.S. troops from Syria. President Trump did accomplish that. What did Biden undo? Well, he just allowed those militants that President Trump conquered and got them to stop fighting. Biden and them just freaking brought them here instead. I want you to think about that. On this day in 2018, the Islamist bullshit was over because President Trump squashed the Islamist State enough where we could withdraw our troops from Syria. What did Biden do as soon as he got in? Ship them here. You remember the show I did on the Mexican border and I showed you this guy and I said he is a Syrian terrorist. Remember when I broke that story? I told you who he was. He was the one getting all aroused, said, "You're going to know my name." That was Biden administration bringing those terrorists here. I've covered a lot of great things in history. Yeah, you will know who I am. You'll remember that, guys? I told you that. That story went viral. I told you exactly who it is. I gave you a background. Then everybody goes, "Oh, we should pay attention." And they research his background. No, he has not been caught. He's still here. But we've evolved because in 2022, on this day, the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, on behalf of the Dutch people, apologized for the slave trade. So the Dutch apologized to people of color for the Muslims trading of slaves that went on for hundreds of years, and they finally started hiring Dutch ships because they were getting so profitable they needed more people to haul, so they hired a shipping company out of the Dutch, but yet the Dutch apologize for it, and the Muslims take over our country. Okay. It was this time, last year? On this day. It's when Dominique Pellecroix, French fellow, was guilty on all charges. It was France's largest rape trial. It ended. And what was he sentenced for? For 20 years, he had been steadily drugging his wife, Giselle. He would drug her, and then he would invite men over while she was drugged to rape her. He was found guilty. There were 50 other perpetrators, but his little bag was drugging his wife and letting people come over and rape her. There you go. That's history. Think about it. There's some odd moments in history there, but the reason I did it, have you ever just researched your day? That's it. Have you ever researched your day? And that's why we're looking at my day, December 19th, on this very day. And I encourage you, interesting, research your day. History's fascinating. There's some cool crap. And you might find some of the most important things in history happened on your day. And it might get you hooked on history like I am. I love you all. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the gifts. I appreciate every one of you. Every one of you. Here, you can use this right now. You can see it up in the top corner, right? Or you can use this for our saving of the Arizona archives of all our unique work, all of our patent work, all of the reports, all the documentation, and everything else. I'll tell you an interesting story about it. The dirty rats always reveal themselves. But I want to just say thank you to every one of you. It's a part of history. The left always wants to attack it. The right wants to attack it as well. Nobody wants the real information to ever be out. But that's the way it is. Anyway, and I will be broadcasting all through the holidays, so don't worry about it. Even if we talk about some stupid ass shit, who knows? We might cover the history of eggnog. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for being here. Research your day and find out all the cool crap that happened on your birthday all throughout the years. Might get you hooked on history. Take care. Love you all. Bye.
Our courts are based on clear and convincing evidence. Want convictions? Want justice? For what happened in the 2020 election? Then we need your help. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The decision you make in the next few moments could decide whether we ever get our elections fixed or not. Here's why. Trump campaign and allies filed 64 different lawsuits. They all went down in flames. 100% of these cases were presented on "It's the machines," or "The machines changed the votes," or "The voting company executive said he would make sure Donald J. Trump would not win." They all went down in flames. Why? You can't bring theories to court as evidence. No supposed Zoom call or six-degree polynomial math theory or census data is or ever will be proof of fraud. You can't bring theories to court as evidence. Here's why. In both civil and criminal law, the side making a claim carries the burden of proof, and prosecutors must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Without physical or otherwise verifiable evidence, a case cannot meet this high threshold. Physical evidence is the key. The question is, did anyone get relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election? And the answer is yes, absolutely. The full forensic audit of Maricopa County, Arizona is the only evidence-gathering work which gathered relevant, reliable, provable, testable, and duplicatable evidence of what really happened in the 2020 general election. Evidence so damning that the system, the deep state, and those who pulled the strings of this country have fought to keep it hidden and have hoped to have it be forgotten to time. Almost $3 million invested in time, funds, and efforts to unlock that which the system wanted hidden. But now, that evidence is in danger of being lost forever. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. With the 2026 midterms coming up, the system is going to try to lame duck President Trump and then most likely introduce new impeachment proceedings. This is the evidence which will help win the war which is surely to come. We need to keep Maricopa County full forensic investigation and archive secure and ongoing. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then we need your help. Please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We need your help securing the full forensic audit archives. Don't allow the only testable, objective, and reliable 2020 election evidence fall into obscurity. Millions were spent on getting it documented and tested. This is historic evidence. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. The historic Maricopa County full forensic audit effort processed 20,895,610 digital and forensic images of varying formats, resulted in 208 million individual evidence-proof files. The system processed over 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. No hopium, no hype, just hardcore forensic evidence. Please make sure the Maricopa County full forensic audit archives survive. Donate now. So if you want what happened in the 2020 election fixed, then please donate to protect and secure this historic evidence. We can't do it without you. We need you. America needs you. Our future needs you. Please donate now. Not fixing 2020 will damn our nation forever. Please donate now.